Hello everyone. In this video I will discuss one of the films called Project Gemini 2022. And never forget that I always pray for you and your family to be happy and healthy always. Once upon a time on Earth, a deadly virus poisoned plants worldwide. Scientists who discovered this lethal pathogen struggled to find a way to stop it, but unfortunately their efforts were in vain. New research indicated that anyone consuming contaminated food would suffer from a fatal illness. Another consequence of the diminishing plants on Earth was the decrease in oxygen levels in the atmosphere, directly affecting human respiratory quality. Atmospheric changes also led to an increase in natural disasters globally. It was estimated that within 20 years, humanity would face extinction. A scientist named Dr. Stephen Ross initiated a project to save human civilization. In his speech, Dr. Stephen believed that humans might be able to build a life on a new planet, inspired by Stephen Hawking's words that if humans wanted to live longer, they had to find a way out of planet Earth. The project began with the discovery of two ancient artifacts, or unique devices, estimated to be 4 billion years old, predating life on Earth. The two devices were an advanced technological machine and a round object referred to as the sphere. They believed these objects did not originate from Earth, and the reason for leaving them here remained unknown. However, Dr. Stephen was convinced that these artifacts were a gift on the brink of human extinction. After years of studying these unique devices, they discovered that they had their own language. Dr. Stephen successfully deciphered dozens of command codes to study the devices further. He found that the sphere could create real wonders by utilizing the chemical elements in the surrounding environment. He argued that the sphere might have been responsible for creating life, suggesting it could be the origin of life on Earth. Scientists planned to travel to a planet within the solar system called TESS. Based on previously sent satellites, they learned that the planet could support life. By making the right adjustments to the sphere device there, they aimed to create a new world, referred to as Earth 2.0, or the second Earth. Although the location was hundreds of light years away from Earth, it posed no problem. The found devices allowed them to perform space-time jumps, reaching a distant place in an instant. Scientists also created duplicates of the two discovered artifacts, meaning the two objects were now identical twins or interconnected. The first machine would be used on the initial mission, while the second machine would be used on subsequent spacecraft. As for the duplicate sphere, scientists would bring it along to build the second world. The first team set to fly there consists of Dr. Stephen as the mission head, Peter as the space engineering expert, Leona as the terraforming specialist, and David as the geologist. For security, the scientists are accompanied by military personnel. Ryan as the commander, Richard as the captain, and Frank as the vice captain. After all preparations are complete, Dr. Stephen and the crew launch into space. Dr. Stephen leaves behind a wife named Amy, a biologist who conducts research with him. Currently pregnant, Amy was recently given a bracelet by Stephen, crafted from a piece of the sphere. Upon reaching Earth's orbit, David and Peter double-check the machines and the sphere they brought with them. They question where the beings who created these objects might be. Could it be that the device originated from a nearly extinct civilization aiming to build a new one? Once ensuring there are no issues, Ryan orders Peter to initiate the jump to the TESS solar system.
And prepare for a jump. Engage.
After the jump, they find themselves near a planet orbiting a star. Frank checks the star map and remarks that they seem to have gotten lost. The star charts don't match, and currently they are not in the TESS solar system. Stephen then asks if Peter entered the correct coordinates. Peter responds that he followed all procedures without errors. Stephen then asks Richard to map the stars and planets around them to determine their current position. Richard states that they are currently in a foreign star system that has never been mapped or known before, meaning they are truly lost. How could they return if they don't know their current position? It's like having a GPS turned on, but the GPS cannot read your location coordinates. The computer system then informs them that there is an approaching foreign object, which turns out to be Peter. The crew suspects that Peter committed suicide out of guilt for leading them into the unknown. However, Leona doesn't believe Peter would give up so easily, especially to the point of suicide. Whether they like it or not, their job becomes even more challenging after losing their mechanic. Stephen then asks David to report on the planet ahead of them. David had previously sent an unmanned rocket there for observation. The planet's surface is composed of volcanic rocks, with an atmosphere lacking oxygen and an average surface temperature of 16 degrees C. Surprisingly, the conditions on this planet seem more promising than those on other planets in the test solar system. Stephen begins to feel that their journey here is not without reason, and that they were intentionally brought here, similar to how they brought the sphere to Earth. Because of this, Dr. Stephen decides to descend to the planet using the landing craft. However, Commander Ryan forbids him because the planet appears to be still developing, and the crew's safety is his responsibility. Stephen then convinces the commander that landing there is their opportunity. Besides, they cannot go anywhere else at the moment. If they can blame the sphere there, scientists on Earth might be able to pick up their signal and follow them. This way, there is still hope to save humanity. After a heated debate, the 5 crew members board the landing craft and descend to the planet. Meanwhile, Richard remains on the carrier ship. As they enter the atmosphere, they encounter a lightning storm that damages the spacecraft. They are forced to release one fuel tank to reduce pressure, and ultimately, they land safely. However, they run out of fuel and cannot return to the carrier. Leona then maps the surrounding area to find a sufficiently deep cave to protect the sphere. After finding a suitable location, they retrieve the sphere and take it there, unaware that a mysterious liquid is leaking from inside the sphere. After entering the cave, Stephen remarked that the planet's conditions were much better than they had anticipated. The cave had an environment similar to where they found the previous sphere. After activating the sphere and making some adjustments, a new chapter of life would soon begin on the planet. Subsequently, they returned to the landing craft. Upon arrival, Ryan immediately declared an emergency situation after receiving a message from Richard, who found a video recording belonging to Peter. It turns out Peter did not die by suicide. When Stephen accused him of silently making mistakes, he inspected the engine. In the video recording, Peter was attacked by something, suggesting that this entity might be what killed him. The creature appeared to emerge from inside the sphere shortly after they left Earth. If the creature was in the engine room, it could be the one disrupting the engine and navigation systems. Frank likened the events they experienced to the story of the Trojan horse. Richard then showed the landing video. He noticed that the creature descended with the sphere they brought. David confirmed it, stating that the computer indicated the program they ran on the sphere did not run as intended. Stephen suggested they go back to the cave for a reset, but Ryan firmly forbade it. From now on, the crew was not allowed to leave until their safety was assured, especially after hiding something from them. The commander then revealed a video recording showing an anomaly inside the cave on Earth. A mysterious holographic image appeared in front of Stephen. The commander suspected that the sphere might be an incubator for a monster, but Stephen didn't say much because he didn't understand the mysterious phenomenon. During the crew's rest, Stephen quietly approached David, asking for his company back into the cave. Initially, David refused, fearing that the Trojan creature might be roaming there. However, since Stephen had contributed significantly to David's career, he eventually agreed to accompany him. Back on Earth, David wasn't originally included in the mission because he suffered from an illness, although doctors claimed he was fine. There's a possibility that David got sick from eating contaminated food or plants affected by the virus, although his body could endure it, and his condition wasn't as severe as others. After reaching the cave, Stephen immediately initiated a reset. It turned out that the sphere not only malfunctioned, but also created forms of alien life, evident from the emergence of strange entities inside the cave. David noticed Troy approaching, and urgently requested a return to the spacecraft, but Stephen refused as he wasn't finished. David believed the sphere shouldn't be activated and shot at it, creating tension between them. However, with the creature closing in, Stephen eventually followed David outside, taking a piece of the sphere affected by David's shot. Upon entering the spacecraft, an alarm sounded. The creature had followed them and breached through the cooling vent, the weakest point due to the thin steel layer. With no other option, they had to lure the creature out. Stephen agreed to be the main bait, feeling guilty for making the creature follow him. The rest of the crew insisted on helping him. Richard asked Stephen to lead the creature right behind the engine so they could burn it. After a chaotic chase, they successfully lured the monster out of the spacecraft. However, once outside, the creature attempted to attack Leona. Despite her attempts to shoot it, she stood too close to the operating spacecraft engine, and shortly after, it ignited. From inside the spacecraft, Stephen saw David outside and asked him to come in. The creature chased him, and when Stephen closed the door, the creature managed to injure David's hand. Stephen then brought David into the lab to treat his injury and conduct research on the severed part of the creature when the door closed. The scene then shifted to Stephen's memories. At that time, Amy strongly opposed his decision to go into space. She mentioned developing a vaccine to combat the virus spreading on Earth and believed that patience would lead them to a solution. However, Stephen insisted that going to another planet was the best path. While examining the tentacle, Stephen was surprised to discover that the creature was a biorobot. It explained how the creature could think and penetrate the spacecraft's steel layers, likely due to being born from the sphere with advanced technology. After researching David's blood sample, Stephen informed him that the mysterious bacteria in his blood, caused by the creature's attack, had strong defense mechanisms against the existing viruses in his body. This suggested that by studying the bacteria, they could create a vaccine to combat the virus affecting Earth, the same virus that had afflicted David. Additionally, the creature was born from the same material as the sphere. Stephen then dissected the creature's tentacle to delve deeper into understanding how the biotechnology worked. Suddenly, a distortion in space and time occurred, revealing an anomaly where Stephen saw his past self while still on Earth. From this, he realized that the holographic image he saw was of his present self. He suspected that the tentacle served as a transmitter, connecting the sphere they brought with the sphere on Earth. There was a possibility that the creature used it to colonize or establish a colony on another planet. Ryan then approached him, stating that Stephen would be temporarily detained because many casualties had occurred due to him. Ryan locked him from the outside until the situation was deemed safe. David heard this and agreed with Ryan, thinking that Stephen prioritized his research, always wanting to play the hero, and he no longer believed in him. David's words reminded Stephen of when he was still on Earth. At that time, Amy felt that Stephen no longer paid attention to her. What Stephen cared about was only his research, despite constantly saying it was for the sake of humanity, which made him forget about the people around him. Amy then threw away the bracelet Stephen gave her and left him. After the earlier anomaly, Stephen re-examined the piece of the sphere he found. He discovered that the fragment was the exact same part he gave to Amy. They might be in the same place, but at a different time. Stephen then contacted Richard, asking him to simulate the movement of stars and planets for the next 4 billion years. After completing the simulation, Richard observed that the arrangement of planets closely resembled their solar system, meaning the planet they visited was Earth 4 billion years ago, long before the existence of life. This explained why they couldn't map their current position, as celestial bodies would undoubtedly change positions over 4 billion years. Stephen suspected that there was an advanced civilization out there with a suitable biosphere, and they sent the sphere to Earth to create it. The sphere he placed in the cave would remain until it was discovered 4 billion years later. Their current task was figuring out how to connect the two spheres, then informed Amy about the bacteria infecting David to help her create a vaccine. Stephen wrote a message on the bracelet he made for Amy, explaining how to connect the spheres. If he wrote the message now, it would appear on her bracelet. Even though Amy discarded it, Stephen was confident that she would find out sooner or later. Richard then told Stephen that he saw Ryan assembling a bomb. It seemed he intended to bring the bomb into the cave to detonate it and kill the creature. Stephen asked Richard to open the door to prevent it. Ryan argued that if the creature wasn't killed, their lives were at stake. However, Stephen opposed it, stating that if the bomb exploded there, the sphere would also be destroyed. Suddenly, David came out and shot Ryan. The infection from the wound had already turned him into a monster. They engaged in a shootout. Stephen tried to snap David out of it, but it seemed David didn't want to listen. Stephen then went outside the spacecraft, fired a shot to attract the creatures, and planned to trap the monster inside the spacecraft, using Ryan's bomb to destroy it. Moreover, with only Stephen and David, who were slowly turning into monsters, surviving, he activated the bomb's timer. Soon after, the creature broke in. Stephen ran to find a hiding place, but unfortunately he crossed paths with David, who was ready to attack him. David, unaware that the creature was behind him, killed him. Stephen took advantage of the situation to escape, and shortly afterward, the spacecraft exploded. Richard then contacted Stephen, informing him of an explosion below. Stephen mentioned that he detonated the spacecraft to kill the creature. No crew member survived except him. Richard then asked Stephen to hold on, as he would lower a ship to pick him up. However, Stephen warned that a severe storm could destroy the ship, suggesting he wait until the storm subsided. Stephen informed him that he would go to the cave to contact Amy. After reaching the cave, Stephen activated the sphere and initiated a reset. Meanwhile, on Earth, Amy noticed that the bracelet Stephen gave her was glowing. She took it and went to the cave to activate the device. After the two spheres synchronized, Amy was suddenly in the cave where Stephen was. The sphere functioned like a time machine, connecting them in the same place but at different times. Stephen approached Amy, but they couldn't make physical contact. Simply put, they were communicating across time, connected in a dimension where time did not bind them. Stephen then confirmed that he was in a place in the past. Stephen explained that what Amy said earlier was true. There was a mechanism in the sphere that could help her create the vaccine. He gave her the antigen formula and promised that they would meet again somewhere. The one thing Stephen regretted was that he would never be able to touch Amy again. He then removed his oxygen mask, realizing that his oxygen was running out and their communication was cut off.
I'm so sorry. I only regret one thing. Never hold you again.
No, oh, Steve.
I love you. Both of you.
Steve.
Several months later, on Earth, the plants turned green again. Thanks to the vaccine created by Amy, the world had hope to sustain life, and finally, the film concluded. There is an interesting aspect of this film. Time travel to the past inevitably creates paradoxes. The artifact they found is the same object they brought back to the past. The advanced technology of the spacecraft is also a machine left by their own predecessors. So, who is the actual owner and who first sent the object to Earth? Is it from the creature or someone else? It's quite confusing, but this might be what is referred to as the Bootstrap Paradox. And that's it for the story series of this film. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to support this channel by subscribe, like and share. See you in the next video. Goodbye.